Hey, what's going on, developers? This is Sakura Dev Channel, and welcome back to the Drizzle ORM Comprehensive Course. In this section, we're going to talk about how we can apply filters on our queries in Drizzle. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, open up the schema.ts file, and as you can see, I've added a score column to the users table, which is an integer that has kind of the score of the user. The number can be, for example, from 0 to 100. So we have an ID, full name, a phone, address, and also a score in the users table. And if I go to the adminers and select the users here, you can see we have a bunch of dummy data inside our users table. And I've used seeding process to populate the users table with these dummy data automatically. In the upcoming section, I will teach you how you can use seeding process to insert some dummy data into your database for such a testing purposes. So you don't have to insert your testing data into your database manually. Okay, so let's go back to our VS Code, and in the first step, let's create an API endpoint, and in that API endpoint, we're going to write our queries. Okay, so in the app directory, I'm going to create a directory called API, and then inside it, I'm going to create another directory called user, and then inside that user directory, I'm going to create the route.ts file. Okay, so now let me export a get function here. Export function get. And since we are going to access to our DB client and run a query, the function should be an async one. Okay, so you already know how you can fetch all the users from the users table. Okay, we don't want that. We want to set filters for our queries. For example, let's say we want to fetch the users with the ID 1. Okay, so here I'm going to say const result equals to await, then DB, import DB from the DB directory. Okay, and then select, and then we want to select from the users table, so I put the users table here. You can see the users table is imported from the db/schema. Okay, and then we can chain another function, a where function, and inside this where function, if you're familiar with SQL language, we can write the conditions for our fetching process. So actually we can put our filters inside the where function. So we want to find the user with the ID of 1. So since our condition uses equal operator, we should import the equal operator or EQ from the Drizzle. So I use EQ. As you can see, it is imported from the Drizzle ORM, and it stands for equals. And inside this equal function, first we specify the column that we want this equal function to be run on that. So our criteria will run on the user.id. So I'm going to say users.id. And in the second argument of this function, we pass our desired value. So we want the users.id to be equal with 1. Okay, so now it will find the users inside the user table with their ID is equal 1. So since the ID is primary key of the users table, it will return just one user because only one user can have the ID of 1. So let's return the result as the response of this API endpoint. So I'm going to say return new response, and then inside the response we say JSON.stringify, pass the result object into it. Okay, so now let's run this API endpoint in the Insomnia client. So let me first make sure that our server is running. Okay, so let's open up the Insomnia client. Okay, so now let's send a HTTP request to the localhost 3000 and then API and then users. Okay, so let's rename it to users. Okay, and then if I click on the send, it will return 41. I think it is user, not users. So let's send again. And then as you can see, it will return an array for us. And inside that array, it's a user object with the ID 1. And you can see the full name of the user, phone, address, and also score of the user. Now let's go back to the VS Code and change the user ID to 2. So it now will return the user with the ID of 2 for us. And you can see the ID of the new user is 2. So in this way, we can apply a filter on our queries with Drizzle ORM. So let's change our use case, and let's say we want all the users with their ID is not equal to 2. So here, instead of the eq function, we can use the NE, which is not equal. So let's import that from the Drizzle ORM. As you can see here, save it and go back to Insomnia, click on the send, and it will return all the users that their ID is not equal to 2. So you can see it first returns the ID 1, and then it skipped the ID 2, and then ID of 3, 4, and so on. So in this way, we can apply not equal filter in our Drizzle ORM query. Now let's do another use case. For example, let's say we want all the users that their score is greater than 50, for example. So we can import the GT function, which stands for greater than, and here we want to say that we want all users with their score. So here I'm going to pass user.score, and we want all of them that their score is greater than 50. So this will be our condition. So let's save this and go back to Insomnia and run the query again. And as you can see, the first user is with the ID 2, and its score is 64, 55, 63, 66, 63, 90, 76, and so on. All the users, their score is greater than 50. We can use the GTE, which stands for greater than or equals to 50. Let's run the request. Okay, let's see if we have any 50. So we have 60. Let's change our condition to 60. So we want all the users with their score greater than or equals to 60. So let's save this and send the request. 64, 66, 63, 90, 76. Let's see. And yeah, we have the user with the score 60. Okay, now we can use another conditional operator, LT, which stands for less than. So this query will return all the users with their score is less than 60. So let's save this and run the query. You can see the score of the first one, 28, 55, 28, 10, and so on. We can also use the LTE, which stands for less than or equal to 60. Okay. Another conditional operator is null, which means return all the users which their, for example, score, or let me change it to address, that is null. So it will return all the users that their address is null. So let's run the query. We have an empty array because none of the users in the user table have a null value in the address column. So let me go to the adminer. For example, let me edit the first one and let me set the address to null. Let's save this. Okay, and I think it's now here. You can see the address of the user with the ID of 1 is now null. Okay, it will returns a empty array because the database saved the null string as a value, not the actual null value. So let's edit again and let's set it here as the null. Okay, so let's save this, and now I think it is a real null value in the address of the first user. So now let's run the query again, and as you can see, it will return the user with the ID of 1 because its address is null. Okay, cool. We can also use the is not null function. Okay, so it do the opposite. It will return all the users that their address is not null. Send the request, and then you can see it will return all the user except the user number 1, which has a null value inside its address. Another conditional operator that you can use inside your queries is the in array. So for example, let's say that we want all the users that their ID is in a list. Let's say we want to fetch all the users that their ID is in the list of 1 to 4. So here I'm going to use in array. Okay, and then inside it, first we should specify which fields of the table we want to run this in array operator on. So we want the users.id, and as a second argument we should pass the list that we want the users.id be in that list. So I'm going to pass the list from 1 to 4. Okay, so let's save this and let's run the query. So as you can see, it will return the users with the ID 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, we can do this with another column. For example, let's say users.score, that we want all users with their score, for example, is in the list of 60 and 90. So here note that it doesn't find all the users between 60 and 90. It just finds the users that their score is either 60 or 90. So the exact value that you want to find must be in the list. So let's save this and run the query, and as you can see, it returns the user with a score of 90, 60, 60, okay, and 60. And we could also use the not in array. So here I change it to not in array. So now it will find the users that their score is not 60, neither 90, okay? So let's save this and send the request, and as you can see, it returns all the users that their score is not 60 nor 90. Okay, so now for example, let's say we want the users that their score is between 60 and 90. So in order to do that, we can use the between function. So let's import it from the Drizzle ORM, and here we shouldn't pass a list, we just pass our two values as second and third argument of this function. So as I said, I want to find the users with their score is between 60 and 90. So let's save this and let's go back to our insomnia. You can see the first is 64, 66, 63, 90, 76, and so on. You can see all these scores are between the 60 and 90. We can also use the not between function, so it will return all the users with their score is not between 60 and 90. So let's change the range from the, for example, 20 to 90. Okay, send the request. You can see score 2, 10, 8, 4, 16, 97, because 97 is greater than 90, and 60, and so on. So it will return all the users with their score is not between 20 and 90. So now let's go to the another function which works with the string values, the like function. So for example, let's say we want all the users that their name contains OB inside it. Okay, so here let's remove this not between function, and now we can use the like function, okay, and specify the column. Okay, we want to run it on the full name column. Okay, and now we can specify our condition value. So here, as I said, we want the users with their name contains OBN. Okay, so I just use OBN inside it and put a percent before it and also after it. So what does this percent is kind of like a regular expression. The first percent is saying that I'm not care about the characters between the OBN, and the second percent is that I'm not care about the characters after the OBN. Actually find the users with their full name contains OBN. Okay, so we have an error here, and that's because we haven't imported the like function from Drizzle ORM. Okay, so let's save this and run the query. Okay, it returns an empty array. So okay, we haven't OBN in any full name of the user, so let's change it to OB. Okay, let's save this, run the query again, and as you can see, OB here, OB here, OB here again, and so on. So let's remove this percent from the like function. Okay, so let's send it again. As you can see, it will returns an empty array, and now it will find users that their full name is exactly OB. So for example, let's say we want here, so if I copy that and paste it inside the instead of the OB, okay, so let's run the request, and you can see it will find that user. So now let's say we want the users with their name starts with Robin. Okay, so let's go back to our VS Code, and here let's remove the last name, and here we just need to add a percent after the first name of the user. Okay, so now let's run it. It again return the users because it will find the user that start with Robin, and it doesn't care about what is came after the Robin. Okay, so let's do it with another case, Alan, for example. Okay, paste it here, save it, run the query again, and you can see it find the user that its name starts with Alan. And we can do this with the last name, for example. Okay, so let's copy the last name of the Alan and paste it here. And now we can add the percent before the last name. So actually we are saying that we don't care what is came before the word. We just want the users that their full name ends with word. Okay, so let's save this and run the query again, and you can see it again returns the Allen word for us. And note that here this like function is case sensitive. So for example, let's again copy the Allen and paste it here and put percent after the Allen. So if I run this, you can see it will return the Allen, but if I change the a to a lowercase, okay, and now if I send the request, you can see it will return an empty array because the like function is case sensitive. So if you want like function to be case insensitive, we can use the I like function. So here if I change it to I like, okay, and let's import it from the Drizzle, and here let's send the request, and now you can see that it will return the Allen. Okay, so you can see here we pass the Allen as a lowercase, but here Allen, the A is uppercase, but the I like function doesn't care about it. Okay, so the other function that we can use with the strings is the not like. So it's just the opposite of the like, and it will return all the users that their name doesn't start with Allen. So let's turn the A of the Allen to the uppercase because not like is again is case sensitive. Okay, so let's run it. Okay, so you can see it returns all the users that their name is not start with Allen. So here we can also use not I like, which is case insensitive version of the not like. Okay, so now we're going to the next conditional operator, which is not. For example, let's say we want the user with their score is not equals to 60. Okay, so here we can use the not equal function, or we can use not function. So you have seen that we can perform this query with the not equal function or NE function. So now we're going to do it with the not function. So here I'm going to use the not function, and as you can see, imported from the Drizzle ORM, and this not function takes another conditional operator as its argument. And now we can pass the EQ function just like before and specify the column user dot, for example, ID, and specify the value. Okay, so now it will return all the users that their ID is not equal to 1. So let's save this and run the query, and you can see it starts with 2 and it doesn't include the user with the ID of 1. Note that you can use not function with all the other conditional operator function. For example, let's do it with the like function. Okay, so here I'm going to turn it to like, and let's perform it on the user.fullname and say return all the users that their name is not started with Allen. Okay, they put a percent after it. Save this, and you can see it returns all the users that their name is not started with Allen. So again, note that here you can use this not function with all other conditional operators. The other function is the AND function, and with AND function you can combine two conditional operators. For example, let's say we want the users that their score is above the 50 and their name contains a letter inside it. So here we just import the AND function. Okay, so let's pass the first conditional operator, which is like, and we're going to say that we want all the users that their name contains a letter A inside it. Okay, let's turn it to a lowercase, and we can now pass the second conditional operator, which is GT. Okay, and then here specify the users dot score and pass the value, which is 50. So now here we are actually saying that we want to find the users with their name contains a letter inside it and the score of that user is above 50. Okay, so let's save this and run the query. You can see the score of the user is 64 and the user has a letter inside it. You can see the score is 76, which is above 50, and the user has a inside its name. So yeah, in this way you can use the AND operator with two other conditional operator. And the last conditional operator is the OR operator, which says that we want all the users. So let's first import it. Okay, so here we actually chaining two conditional operator with the logical OR operator. Okay, so here let's say we want the users with their name starts with Alan. Okay, Alan, or the score of the user is, for example, above the 90. Okay, so let's save this and run the query. You can see it returns the user with the score of 92, although the name of the user doesn't start with the Alan. It's because the second condition is the case for this user, and also this user. You can see the score is 97, 99, 96, 89. You can see the second condition is not the case for this user because the score of the user is not greater than 90, but the name of the user is start with Alan. And yeah, you can see how you can chain two conditional operator with the logical OR operator. And now let's go back to VS Code and do something more complex. Let's say we want the user, which ID of the user is, for example, is 60, and the score of the user is above the 90, or the name of the user is started with Alan. So here we can first put the AND function, okay, and let's put our first conditional operator, which is EQ, and I'm going to put it on the users.id. Okay, we want to find the user with the ID of 60, and as a second argument of the AND operator, we just pass the OR function that we have created before. And let's put a closing parenthesis of the AND here, and we are actually saying that we want to find the user with the ID of 60, then run this conditional operator. So we are actually saying find the user with the ID of 60, and that user must its name start with Alan, or its score is greater than 90, and if the both of these condition is true, it's okay. So let's save this and send the request, and you can see it returns the user with the ID of 60, which is the first condition of the AND operator, and as a second, its name is either start with Alan or the score is above the 90, which is not the case with this user. But since the condition on the full name is true, it makes the OR operator to true, and in turn, since the first condition of the AND operator is true and the second condition of the AND operator, which is the OR, is also true, it will return this user as the result of the query. Okay, so I think that's it for this section, and in the next section we're going to talk about the relationships between the table inside the Drizzle. We're going to talk about the one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-many relationship, and see how we can implement these relationships with Drizzle. So stay tuned for my next video and have a nice time. Bye bye.